When Tyler Henry first appeared on television, he didn't seem like an ordinary teenager stepping into the spotlight. He seemed like a mystery. A young man who claimed he could communicate with those who had passed away suddenly found himself sitting across from well-known celebrities, delivering deeply personal messages that left even skeptics unsettled. His calm presence and precise insights quickly turned him into one of the most recognizable psychic mediums in America. But while millions watched him help others find closure, very few understood how much pain had already shaped his own life long before fame arrived. Behind the success, Tyler Henry's story is marked by illness, loss, emotional struggle, and secrets that began long before cameras ever followed him. Long before television, Tyler was just a quiet child growing up in Hanford, California. Raised as an only child by his parents, Teresa and David, his early life appeared simple and ordinary. Like many children in a small town, his days were filled with school routines, family time, and a predictable rhythm. Nothing about those early years suggested he would one day become one of the most talked-about figures in Hollywood. Everything began to shift when he was around 10 years old. One morning, he woke with an overwhelming feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't a dream, and it wasn't something he had been told. It felt like a sudden certainty that something terrible was about to happen. At the time, he didn't understand it, but the feeling refused to fade. Eventually, he tried to explain it to his mother, telling her he believed his grandmother was going to die. To her, it sounded like confusion or imagination. She tried to calm him, assuming it was just a child struggling to explain a strange feeling. Then the phone rang. On the other end was devastating news. His grandmother had suddenly collapsed and passed away. The timing made his earlier words impossible to ignore. What had sounded like a strange statement now carried a weight no one could easily explain. For Tyler, the moment wasn't empowering. It was frightening. He hadn't wanted to predict anything, and he certainly hadn't wanted to be right. But the experience left him with a question that would follow him for years. If it wasn't coincidence, what had really happened? As he grew older, more experiences followed. At times, he sensed emotions connected to people he had just met. Other times, he described details about someone's loved ones that he had never been told. At first, he kept these moments to himself, unsure if anyone would believe him. But as the experiences became more frequent, they became harder to ignore. By his teenage years, people around him started noticing. Friends asked questions. Members of his community grew curious about the quiet teenager who sometimes seemed to know things he shouldn't. Tyler hadn't set out to become a psychic medium. He was still trying to understand what was happening to him. But the moment that began with his grandmother's passing had already opened a door that wouldn't easily close. As those impressions grew stronger, they also began to change how others saw him. By the time he was around 16, he was giving readings to people in his community. Word spread quickly, and reactions were mixed. Some were fascinated, while others were deeply uncomfortable. For most teenagers, high school is about fitting in. For Tyler, that became almost impossible. Some classmates kept their distance, unsure how to react to him. Others openly doubted or mocked him. Growing up in a conservative community made things even more complicated. While a few believed his experiences might have meaning, others viewed them with suspicion. The result was isolation. His teenage years became a period of confusion, where he was trying to understand his own experiences while also dealing with how others reacted to them. During this time, another deeply personal experience left a lasting impact. Tyler formed a close bond with a boy named Terry. Their connection quickly became one of the most meaningful relationships in his life. He later described it as his first experience of love, filled with the emotional intensity that comes with discovering something new and deeply important. But alongside that connection came a troubling feeling. Tyler sensed that Terry's past illness might return. The impression was strong enough to frighten him. Instead of sharing it, he slowly began to distance himself, unable to cope with the possibility of losing someone he cared about so deeply. Years later, that fear became reality. Terry's illness returned, and he passed away at a young age. The loss was devastating, but what followed was even harder to carry. Tyler was left with a deep sense of guilt, reflecting on the distance he had created. Even though he had been trying to protect himself emotionally, it felt as though he had pulled away when it mattered most. It was one of the first times he realized that his ability didn't just affect others. It also placed a heavy emotional burden on him, forcing him to live with knowledge that was difficult to accept. As he approached adulthood, the reputation he had built in his hometown began spreading beyond it. What started as small readings for people he knew gradually turned into something much larger. People from outside his community began reaching out, hoping he could offer the same kind of connection. By the time he was 17 and 18, he was performing readings almost daily. That attention eventually reached the entertainment industry. Producers and television networks became interested in the young man whose abilities were drawing attention. A major turning point came when he appeared on a popular reality show, where he shared emotional insights connected to a well-known family. The moment spread quickly, introducing him to a much wider audience. Soon after, he was offered his own television series. At just 19 years old, he found himself at the center of a world most people his age could hardly imagine. The show quickly gained attention, with celebrities sitting across from him, hoping for meaningful connections to people they had lost. Some arrived curious, others uncertain, but many left visibly emotional. Moments from the show spread widely, helping build his reputation. Demand grew rapidly, with thousands of people hoping for a reading. The waiting list expanded to a point where it became impossible to keep up. From the outside, it looked like a remarkable success story. A teenager who once struggled to fit in had become a well-known figure in entertainment. But with that success came pressure. At an age when most people are still figuring out their lives, Tyler was carrying the emotional weight of others' grief. Each reading required more than simply sharing impressions. It meant managing emotional reactions, remaining calm, and navigating deeply personal moments. Over time, that emotional strain became part of his daily life. The same ability that brought him success also required him to absorb the pain of others. As his visibility grew, so did the attention on his personal life. People became curious about his own story, leading to a discovery that would deeply affect him and his family. For most of his life, Tyler believed a certain version of his family history. That understanding changed after a DNA test revealed unexpected results. What followed was a difficult and complex truth about his family's past, one that reshaped how he saw his own identity. The revelation brought both answers and new